What's up guys, this is Andy here, going to bring you a tutorial, part 1 of 3 perhaps, maybe 1 of 2, depends how well this goes down, of basic character animation, rigging, and everything that comes with it in 3ds Max. So today I'll be using a Call of Duty model, for example. I'll post a link in the description on how to get them, as I think it's a better tutorial than I could create. This tutorial is going to be sort of setting up the rig and preparing it for stuff like that. So it's going to include render setup. So first of all, the first thing I do is you click that button there, render setup, and go output size. I always go for HDTV, and usually you'd go for 1280 by 720 or 1920, and then scale it down and compose it into After Effects. But for the basis of this tutorial, for quicker previews, I'll do 1000 by 562. That'll just make it quicker to render. And then assign render, you want to change it from default to mental ray renderer, and that's alright. The only other things that I've put in the scene are an Omni light there. If you go into lights, standard and Omni, you just drop it in. The 3 I've put, and then if you go into the modifier panel, set the intensity, color and attenuation. So one that's slightly blue, one that's a bit red, and then one that's a bit more orangey beige, and sort of like that. So if we give this a quick render, if you hold on Shift and F, it'll come up with these save frames. So that'll basically say it'll render anything in this area. So if you click render, and there we go, it looks a lot more detailed. As you can see, it's nicely textured, and everything's alright. Okay, so what we've got now is we've got the mesh. So we're going to go into Create Systems, and we're going to click Biped, and just drag this up sort of a similar height to, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. And then you want to go into the motion panel and click figure mode and load file. There's this one grey off the internet. If you go into your downloads file or wherever you save it, I'll put a link to it in description. If you open it, and it'll sort of be roughly the same size and height and sort of scale that you should want it to be. So if you accidentally misclick off like I do, if you try like rotating it, as you can see, it rotates part of it, or even if you select it all, if you can select it all, it rotates it and sort of warps it around. You don't want that. So what you want to do is you want to go click here, select by name, and you want to click select Biped 01 or BIP01, and that's sort of the default place for where you want to rotate it. And you can rotate it as many times as you want, but and it will keep it all in its original place. So if you want to, I'll click on to angle snap toggle and set it to 90 degrees, so it'll give it more of a perfect angle, and sort of slot that into place. It doesn't need to be too accurate at this moment in time, as I'll sort of do all the fixing in a minute. The next thing what we're going to do is we're going to sort of select the hands and the body. You don't really need to worry about the head, because it's just the head that you rig it to. So you want to go into Object Properties, and you're going to select See-Through, and then you're going to right click again and click Freeze Selection. What this means is that when I go to select a bone, which is actually inside the mesh, you don't actually select the body, which is what you don't want. I'll just do it for these 2 bits as well, and these bits that aren't actually attached to the actual body. So same again, Object Properties, See-Through, and go on Freeze Selection. I'm going to do this in this series of tutorials in a lot more detail, so there'll be numerous uploads, but I think if you follow and stick with it, it'll be a lot more valuable for what you want to do. And so what you're going to want to do now is move everything into position. I mean, as you can see, it's a bit too forward facing, so what I'm going to do is select it again, very repetitive I know, and just move it into position where it should kind of be. The main things that you'll probably want to do is just moving the hands and the feet positions. They're the sort of most important ones that you want to do. And you want to sort of scale things to their appropriate size. Obviously, if your character, it could be one that you've made, such as an alien, it might have very long arms or short stubby hands or whatever. So you need to just sort of scale things up and down using these three: select and rotate, move, and uniform scale. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. I'm just going to move the foot into position on both sides. That's just an error in the mesh for some reason, so I'll just do the same again, and free selection. So everything from there looks alright. I may want to move it a bit more forward, as you don't really want too much of the biped outside of the mesh, so try and follow that as strictly as possible. Move that back a bit. That should be alright. Probably didn't need to do that, but that's alright. Okay, now the only other thing is moving the head into position. Mine's not very aligned very well, so I'm just gonna do my best to guess where the sort of head is. So it's probably around about there. That's alright. And the only other position really is the hands. Now another part of 3ds Max is where the sort of orientation of where you rotate. At the minute it's set to view, which means it's the standard X, Y, and Z move system and rotate system. But if you click on these drop down and you click local, for moving things like the hands and fingers, it makes it a lot easier. But if you're just moving feet and stuff, you can just use area. I think it's area view. So what this means is it does it on its sort of own orientation. So when you go to move it, you move it like a diagonal axis rather than just the standard upright, right, and towards you in sort of Z, X, Y. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you with the right hand, left hand, yep, the left hand, the sort of basic setup for the hands. So, it's windy outside. Okay, so sort of coming back into it, what you want to do is select local, and first of all I'm going to rotate the hand into sort of the rough position that it should be. Looking at that, it seems alright. I'm fairly happy. Maybe I'll take off angle snap toggle for this, as you want to get sort of a very precise. I'm sort of happy with that. You don't need to worry about the fingers, it's just sort of the hand slash palm area that you need to really worry about when doing this. But I'd say I'm happy with that. You also need to keep on checking that when you move the hands, like if you move it up there, for some odd reason that the hand would be there, it also moves the arm position as well. So what you want to do, you also need to make sure that this is in figure mode. You should also click figure mode when doing this, because if you realise you've rigged it not in figure mode, you're going to have to do it all over again, which I've experienced several times. But I'm sort of happy with that position. I mean, it's just a rough guide, just for this tutorial. I have plenty of other rigs that I'm working on, so I wouldn't be too bothered about this one. So moving on to each individual finger, what you want to sort of do is, for the thumb, move it quite far back, because if you think about how far your thumb actually does go back, right now I'm just looking at my thumb, realising how far it goes back. But you can move these around. I mean, you can have it there, because it is for custom characters initially. I guess 3ds Max did it, so you can move them around and they'll still follow the hand when moved. But sort of first get your initial position sorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up the stretch it around a bit and move it in one view to where it should be, and then when we come to look in another view, you'll see that you need to do two sort of checks. When we come around here, you can see that it's skewed off to one side. So what you want to do is you want to only sort of do the bottom, the sort of part one of the thumb, you could say, or part one of the finger. So the first part of it, and only sort of move that bit for the actual part. Otherwise, then everything will start rotating off onto different angles when you come to animate and such like. So that's sort of the thumb. You can tweak it and concentrate on it as much as possible. Obviously, the more time you spend on it, aligning it correctly with where the joints are of the mesh, the better you're going to create. So I would advise strongly not to spend little time on this. I mean, I'll go over it quickly just for the sake of this tutorial. But I'll move on to the next finger. You want to sort of align the end knuckle bit where the knuckle would be, and move it to the top end of the mesh, but make sure it's not sticking out, because that's not what you want to do. You sort of want to rotate it, as we've done with the thumb. Scale it up or down where you think the next knuckle would be, the joint, and then rotate everything else into position. I wouldn't recommend moving the parts of the biped, because, well, when I say move, I mean move into position. Obviously you can move the bottom one, but I don't think you can move part 2 and 3. No, you can't. So that's okay. I'm fairly happy with that. As you can see, everything is very central. That's sort of the key. The better you center it and the more time, the better it is. I can't really stress it enough. Obviously, if you only want to do it quickly, it's up to you. If you are lucky and you do it quickly and very well, then, well, what can I say? You're very lucky. So same again with all these fingers. I'm pretty sure you kind of get the idea by now. But you can keep on sort of following this tutorial. This part 1's only going to be like setting it up as such. We're not going to add any modifiers to the mesh in this part, because I think setting up a rig is sort of the first thing you really need to do. Because if you don't have a correctly set up rig, then you can't sort of animate it well, which is why I like to spend quite a lot of time doing this. Well, when I say I like to, I don't really have much of a choice if I want the outcome to be good and professional, which I guess is what you sort of want to do, and also you need to enjoy it. If you enjoy something that you're doing, you have quite a lot of motivation to actually want to finish it. So the sort of thing that I enjoy is seeing what the final output would be when you do it. I mean, if you create work that you're proud of, you're more likely to express it better, share it, generate more views if you upload it to YouTube or whatever you do with it. Basically, this tutorial's for all round sort of aspects of 3ds Max. I'm just using Call of Duty as an example, really, because it's a very easy access to models, because that's what I can sort of get. And that's sort of about it for the tutorial. I mean, the same principle applies for every part of the body, or every part of the biped. But these are sort of the only main areas of concern were the fingers of when I've been trying to do rigs in the past, and the feet. Obviously, if you get it into a better position, as I said earlier, I've probably repeated that about 5 or 6 times by now, but I think you get the message. That, I guess that's the better outcome. As you can see, everything's lined up apart from this bit here, which I'll quickly do. Where you just need to do this on the other hand. Just repeat the same process until you have something that sort of looks like that. Everything's sort of rigged in. I mean, I could do a start to finish comparison. That's what it sort of looked like, horribly out of shape and everything. To that, so everything we've covered in this lesson is sort of just basically setting up some very basic lighting. Nothing too fancy. It just makes it look better for whilst you're doing it. Obviously, main things for your compositing will be in After. And so that's about it, really. Sorry if it seemed a bit unstructured. I've been interrupted about 4 or 5 times during this tutorial, but hopefully the next couple shouldn't be as bad. If you can leave this video, give it a like and some feedback. Oh, one last thing. Select any part of the biped. It could be a finger, it could be anything. Select similar, and then go into object properties, and then click uncheck renderable. And I'll see you guys later for part 2, where we'll be adding the modifier and actually fixing any problems that people have.